Hello, this is Richard Powison. It's 4:16 p.m. Eastern Time, Thursday, October 10th. This video is a follow-up of the currency forecast that we discussed yesterday and today, basically British pound yesterday and the euro today. This is the daily chart of the British pound versus the US. And basically what we have here is we wanted to point out a monthly cycle. And you can see this one didn't work top or bottom. But you can see the rest of them started to appear to work here. Now this is what's rather interesting, is that even though it looks like it has violated when we show this arrow, this was about the earliest for a bottom. So we said if it violates 160, it may trend on down to the 40-day average. And it may yet do that. But what we warned you is the 5-day stochastic was also already oversold, and that can kind of put the brakes on of just how much it can drop, and you have to start thinking in terms of there's probably a bottom coming here, a bounce, and there may be a weak bounce if it's in a much larger downtrend. But indeed, if you're looking for buy signals, you'll normally find some kind of momentum indicator that's probably near some oversold condition, and you just have to be concerned it's going to start to turn up. So we're a little suspicious that if we take this I used to call them cycle lines or bars, and I'm now borrowing from the business project management people. They use what's called a Gantt chart. Now they'll have several of these lines, and it's really just measuring when certain activities are to be accomplished or underway, and then of course the beginning and ending is lining up a beginning and ending of the activity or project. So we're now calling this a cycle Gantt line, meaning maybe we're borrowing from the Gantt line concept of a horizontal line, but we're trying to reflect a cycle beginning and ending, okay? And you can see the bottom here. But as we went further back in history, we found that this line could be extended out a little bit further. And in addition, you can see that if I put it right there, indeed it may bottom as of today even, okay? Now we also know that eventually it should bottom, we'll get some kind of rally. Now it may just be a weak rally, just a little pop up, because it's already time for a top. This seems a little too early, and to let you in a little secret, we actually have a business cycle model, but I keep that for proprietary information. I don't necessarily give it out to the public, but it looks at even smaller cycles, and it breaks them down into smaller and smaller cycles. And I don't mind teaching that method, and I don't mind giving away the long-term model, but we don't usually give away any kind of short-term model unless somebody wants to pay seriously for it. But at any rate, what it was doing was giving us a clue that's very unlikely this is a top. It certainly could be, but very unlikely. So I think, yes, we will get some little bounce out of this British pound, okay? A little pop up here, and if it trades over the 5-day average, that would give us a clue that's trying to work on that. What we don't know is it just going to be a little pop up and go down anyways in the next bottom? Was this violation something serious, okay? So on that report yesterday, we just primarily wanted to point out a few factors. One, look at this trend line that we actually drew to match up with cycle bottoms, monthly cycle bottoms. And it's a monthly cycle, but it can actually run a little less than a month. At any rate, you can see they violated it, and then seriously, it was down good for the day. And then when it tried to rally, it couldn't do much of all and just bumped its head on the 5-day average and sold off yet again. And it may just keep selling off as they try to rally near the 5-day average. Someone may be selling it, and maybe they want to come down to this 40-day average, which is more important for commodities, but it should not be ignored for financial markets. Financial markets might prefer a 50-day average. At any rate, I think this is the limit for short term, personally, but we'll see. And it's just because it's getting so oversold here that the lower it goes, it's got to be stretching some kind of rubber band. But what if this monthly cycle bottom come in and we actually got a sizable rally back up, even if it was to create a bearish head and shoulders pattern, meaning it would top out below this high, but somewhere's near this high, and then down? And what if it just simply went on up for a new high for this chart? Is there any information that could suggest that? Well, we didn't write about that in the article. We simply said, watch for that breakdown of 160, be concerned. Likewise, if it were to close above the 5-day average, be concerned it can actually rally. You still have to consider a rally above the 5-day average could be bullish, but right at the moment, all we know is the trend is down. And the best we can say is it's running late. but there is still a chance for that monthly cycle to work, so maybe it will not decline to that 40-day average. Now, this is a weekly chart, and we haven't got any analysis on this. I didn't transfer it from our model output. But basically, this line is an interest rate of the 10-year Treasury note. I just was kind of curious of what it's doing, and I kind of added up some of the weeks from the April low back here in interest rates and found about 58% of the time the euro was going, or I'm sorry, the British pound was going higher with rates or something like that. But maybe you should just look at the general trend. General trend is just up along with rates. But you can also say it doesn't correlate that well. It can be off the mark several weeks. Here it was going down for at least 3 weeks, a little more towards 4 weeks spanning, and yet rates shot up anyways. But I was just wondering whether this little turn up in rates, and I'm a little suspicious the stock market is going to do better now into Thanksgiving, through Thanksgiving. I'm a little suspicious that the interest rates can rally a bit here too. And I was just curious whether there could be more upside for the British pound. Well, some of our cyclical research for bigger trends suggests there's a cycle right here, like this, and it comes back here. And all it was suggesting is maybe it's not complete. Even though the 5-week stochastic is rolling over for a sell signal, and I'm using the 532 just like I do for the daily, it's just I'm using weekly data. So I'm wondering if it can trade over 1.6124, will it actually spike up at least one last time for this larger cycle? So I think I want to favor giving it a chance that even though it broke 160, could it find support at this 5-week average? And you can just see for that monthly cycle, it would, if it's a normal market, if something more serious isn't falling apart here, I think they would give us at least a knee-jerk reaction and kind of give us a little upside-down U or V pattern here for that monthly cycle. And you can see this monthly cycle here, kind of see them tracing out. They're kind of pops and drops every few weeks, aren't they? Well, let's discuss today's article, of which we made a comment that yesterday it seemed like to me they were taking the negative news coming out of Washington, Congress, whatever, and applying it to the fact the dollar was up. And it wasn't just yesterday, I should say it was recent days. But then today I noticed they said the dollar's up and it's because it looks like Congress is working together and they might get something through. And I said, wait a minute, which is it? Okay. At any rate, you can see with this chart, Euro pretty much rallied with the higher rates. But I don't know how much to trust that. I don't think there's a great correlation yet. I think during the 2020s, 2030s, you're going to see a very good correlation of the dollar moving higher with higher interest rates. But for this decade, I kind of feel like we're going back and forth here. It's some kind of evolutionary process. At any rate, you can see they brought it to the 5-week average and stopped, and they even bounced it off it a little bit. But we got the 5-week stochastic rolling over towards the sell signal, and it's overbought. But just like the British pound, I'm coming up with a scenario that I'd much rather see another one of those monthly upswings or cycles swinging up here for, say, next week, and could swing all the way up to a new high compared to the high of last week to kind of put in some larger cycle. And I'm even come up with some scenarios saying it can actually do this a few times, that maybe it stays up for the rest of this month. But ultimately, probably either next week going to the end of the month, first week November, it can put in a cycle here. And I'll explain these in future updates for our currencies and give you a little more of our proprietary model insight as well. But there's even a larger cycle like this, okay, which can actually be a quarterly to semi kind of cycle. So just something to consider. All right, that maybe it just doesn't have to break down and keep going down now, even though I don't doubt looking farther out, I think the dollar is going to be higher by November, and therefore these currencies would be down. At any rate, now let's look at what we showed in today's article. Here again, we were showing this monthly cycle. This is about the maximum it could get. I mean, they just stretched the rubber band for all of its worth. Still came in about 4 weeks, bottom to bottom. I think it's like 17 days. You can count it out itself. It should, most of the time, it should be quite a bit shorter than that. Here's another cycle, monthly. Now we're tracing out bottoms to bottoms. And here's that cycle Gantt line, and it's saying about the latest for cycle bottom ought to be October 15th. You're in the latter 1/3 of that, or the right-hand 1/3 of that, so it can bottom any time now. And here you can see the cycle tops. Now here, this one didn't work. And I forgot to do the math. I went back, further back in history, and this was a bit of an oddball here. It does, a majority of the time, trace out nice cyclical patterns. Okay, like this here, an upside down U or V. It's basically how we're doing business during the month. That's all it is that supply and demand of how we do business. They got to buy and sell for a certain portion of the month, and then they got to sell, buy for the other portion, okay? At any rate, you can see the 5-day stochastic is not nearly as oversold as what we saw for the British pound, but it's approaching there. But notice how narrow spread that 5-day stochastic is. It wouldn't take much at all to turn that around for a buy signal. So that's not a trustworthy bearish trend, but it's definitely a bearish trend. You can say the trend is down out of that high. So in my opinion, trade over today's high, okay, is probably bullish. I think if you get up near the open the previous day, or get up near 135.701 and then clearly above that 5-day average, I would say the monthly cycle's bottom, and it can very well head higher. I think we're going to see some higher euro prices and lower dollar by next week here. So it'll be interesting how this works out, and I just thought I'd make this video for a little additional insight, and we'll do more of this thing in the future. Thank you.